Let's do it, Billy. All right. Thank you very much, my friend, for being here today. I'd like to start from the start. Most people look at world champions and they see them as the final product, and they don't realise that world champions once had no experience and once were novices. Tell us a little bit about why you first walked into a boxing gym.
Well, I mean, for me, it was sort of an accident. I never really walked into a boxing gym per se. As a young kid growing up, I grew up in an area that was predominantly Anglo. So we got picked out. We stood out like a sore thumb, and me and my brothers used to get picked on at school. And then my dad was like, I'm going to put you guys in some after-school sports to try to break down the barriers. And we decided to take up rugby league. And so I started playing rugby league. And then one day, the trainer just pulled out a set of pads and some gloves and stuff. And been watching a whole bunch of Rocky movies my whole life at that point, and I thought, put on the gloves, and I hit the pads, and the trainer was like, mate, have you ever boxed before? I said, no, but I watched plenty of Rocky movies. That's exactly how it started. And he said to me, mate, I think you're onto something. Get your dad to take you to Sutherland PCYC, and I never looked back.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. And once you started, did you think straight away that you're going to do this for a career, or did it take a bit of time or a few fights for you to have that realization?
To be quite honest with you, I knew from the moment that I walked into the gym that was exactly what I wanted to do. Like, when I walked into the gym, I remember exactly the door opened up and there was two guys in the ring, and I remember their names. One of them's name was Adam and the other one's name was Alex, and they were sparring and they were going at it, and I thought, no one's breaking it up. I said, this is exactly what I want to do. I just want to fight. And, I never looked back. So from the age of 12, I had a really clear vision. And the vision was that, I'm going to become a world champion one day. You look around the gym, there was posters of Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, different fighters, and I was seeing posters at that time of Jeff Fennick and old time fighters, and I thought, man, this is exactly what I want to do. So I started doing my research and working out what it takes, and I quickly just found that consistency in my approach, and the success would follow later after that.
Absolutely. Now that's fantastic to hear. And how do you think boxing helped develop your character as a youngster?
Well, I mean, for me, as a young boy getting picked on at school, it definitely gave me the confidence to be able to stand up for myself and not necessarily fight back. But once people knew that I could actually box, and this is exactly what I did. After starting boxing, literally not even 2 months later, I was having my first fight. I was having an exhibition, and it was with Tommy Brown, who was at the time was a gun, had already had nearly 100 amateur fights. He was obviously going to look after me, but I invited a whole bunch of friends from school. So everyone's gone back to school saying, oh, mate, Billy Dibb's a freaking easy guy. He's got some punches on him, and quickly gained everybody's respect. And, I didn't need to use boxing to protect myself at school. I just used it became a tool to actually help me get through school, because my dad started using boxing against me when I was playing up at school. My dad would say there's no boxing for a week. So I quickly went from the back of the class to the front of the class, went from getting 50% to getting now 80%, 90%. I started achieving, so boxing really helped me achieve as a student at school, and then helped me excel in my later life as well.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic to hear. And I guess for any person that's thinking about getting into boxing, whether that be for fitness or for fighting, how do you think that can change their life?
Well, for me, I know it changed my life, but for them, when I go to speak to kids at schools and stuff, I don't necessarily speak to them about becoming fighters, but I do tell them to find a sport that they can exercise, because obviously, for me, punching that bag, you get to release these endorphins, it's a feeling that you can't explain, and you know yourself once you've had a great session and you leave, you feel like, wow, you feel like you've achieved something, and that's what boxing does. And, boxing has changed so many lives. When you think about people that come from poverty, from rags to riches, how many stories have you heard in boxing like you've heard of millions of stories from rags to riches, and that's what boxing does for people. So, but obviously the training side of things is it's always a beautiful thing, and to get fit, and there's no other sport in the world that can get you fit like boxing does.
Absolutely, 100%. And I guess it's stereotypical for people to think boxing is like an angry sport or an angry form of exercise. Obviously, people that have boxing experience know it's very much about discipline and staying calm versus being angry. Do you think the discipline learned through boxing can help people in other areas of their life?
Definitely. I'll tell you, I was just actually telling your father earlier, boxing is full of nice guys. Fighters are nice people. They're just, obviously you get the odd angry one here and there, like a Mike Tyson, but fighters are generally they're good people, they're kind-hearted people, and even Mike Tyson is a kind-hearted person. He just, it's a circumstance of where he grew up. So, boxing is a sport full of gentlemen, I would say.
Absolutely. And one thing that I feel as though that doesn't get spoken about enough in boxing is the relationships you build through boxing. Was there a person or a set of people that were very, I guess, helpful to you in your career and helped you along your way?
Most definitely. For me, I feel like, as a child, I was mesmerized by Prince Naseem Hamed. He was my childhood hero, and, to even get to meet him was one thing, but then to become like really close friends with him, that was just another major thing for me. So, obviously boxing, you can build amazing relationships, and I've got a relationship with a lot of great fighters, Actually, today's the first time I met your father, so I would say that's going to be a long-time relationship as well. Barry Michael's been a great friend of mine for a long time, Jeff Fennick, a lot of great fighters, Anthony Mundine, Danny Green. Like, you build amazing networks through boxing, and obviously I've got amazing networks all over the world. Shane Mosley, Oscar De La Hoya, all these people. I can reach out to them at any time and know that I can get in touch with them, which is something that's amazing.
100%. And do you think, I guess, even as far as on a local level, someone just boxing for fitness is able to find their tribe or kind of find their community through something, like a boxing gym?
I definitely feel that way, because a lot of kids come to the gym and they find a family in the gym. Sometimes they're going through a circumstance at home where it's not a very homely feel. Then they come to the gym and they're getting all this love. So a lot of the kids that, trained in the gym when I was training, you feel like they didn't go on to box or anything, but they would just come there to train, and it was like a home for them. It was like, they make new friends, somebody to lean on, somebody to talk to, and that's where you find that in a boxing gym. You really do find that in a boxing gym. You've got all these characters that come together and they just mesh.
100%. And looking back over your career, Billy, what was one of the highest moments, and can you describe what you felt in that moment?
Yeah, I would definitely say becoming a world champion is definitely the highlight and the pinnacle of my career, and defending my world title. But that moment when I won both the IBO and the IBF world titles was just special moments. More so with the IBF, because I had lost in a challenge for the WBO world title, and it was my dream to become a WBO world champion because I wanted to follow in the footsteps of Nas. But he also won the IBF world title in '97, and for me to be able to emulate what he did in 2011 and win the IBF world title was just a moment that I'll never forget. And I remember, going to the scorecards, and I won on a shutout. Like, I shut this guy down. He had nothing, and he was supposedly supposed to come over and knock me out and couldn't do anything about it. So, to get that decision that day and to be called the new champion of the world was just the most amazing feeling, and something that I can't explain.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic to hear. And obviously, you've had some tremendous battles inside the ring, but also outside the ring. And you've fought some incredible opponents. What was it like to go through, obviously, you training, having these, incredible highs in your career, to then obviously be training for a fight and then find out that you've had a life-threatening illness?
I mean, for me, I definitely feel that prepared me for what was to come. I feel like nothing happens by accident, and God has written a plan for everybody, and I felt like that was part of God's plan. Maybe, that fight that I was going to go into was going to be not so good for me, and God wanted to save me from that. So I end up with this illness, and then when the doctor looks you dead in the eye and tells you, mate, you got 6 months to live, that's a really bitter pill to swallow at the time, especially having a son who's on the verge of turning 3. And the first thing that I said to that doctor was, how do I turn 6 months into 60 years? And his question was, why? And I said, look, mate, I've got a son who's about to turn 3 years old, and I've got to walk into school in 2 years' time. And he goes, well, you just found your why. And he was upfront and honest. He told me that it's going to be a really strenuous battle, and it's going to be hard, and there's going to be times where you feel you're not going to be able to get through it, but you just got to find that why. And mate, I found my why, and obviously I wanted to be there for my wife and my son, but more so my son, because I didn't want him to grow up without a father. So I had to pull, everything that I've been through in my career. Nothing prepared me for this opponent that I couldn't see. Because yourself, okay, you're fighting Zolani Morali, or you're fighting whoever you're fighting, Evgeny Gradovich or Jorge Lasieva. You can watch footage on this guy. You can see how he moves, how he steps, how he punches, where he dodges, all these things. But how do you prepare for an opponent that you can't see? And the toughest. Because when I tell you about cancer, cancer's got 100% speed, 100% power, 100% agility. It's got everything is 100%. And it's like playing a video game against somebody that you can't see. But you have to, you know, I put my trust and faith in God. I called upon God on several occasions, and He answered my prayers, you know. And my thing was, I really, really wanted to be there for my son, and I was willing to go to the brink of death to get there, and I did. I saw death on a few occasions, you know, but you know, through the mercy and the strength that God gave me, I was able to overcome that and still be here today, which is a total blessing, man.
That's incredible, Billy. And you touched on it during that answer, but what were some of the internal conversations you were having with yourself, especially during the some of the harder days?
Well, you know, I tried to look at it like a fight, you know, because I had several rounds of chemotherapy, like something like 9, and what I did was I labeled it round 1, round 2, and I would just get through round by round. Like, it's like when I was fighting, my trainer would tell me, just win this round. Don't worry about winning the fight, win the round. It will win one round, and then eventually, you know, you get ahead of it. And so that's what I would try to do. I'd be like, no, you just got to win that round. You know, you don't have to think about the end result. Just win this round, get through it alive. Because really, you know, when they put that chemo in you, they're telling you, the truth is, they tell you is that, listen, this kills everything good and bad, and it's up to you to fight. So, you know, obviously I was able to draw on all of them battles that I had in the boxing rings. You know what I mean? All of them battles that I faced outside of the ring as well, and just to draw strength from it. And it wasn't just me, it was obviously the love of the community. And when I say the community, I say the boxing community, and like my community in a whole. Each and every person was praying for me, and it was like, you know, maybe it wasn't my prayers that got through to God. Maybe somebody that prayed for me said, hey, God, could you spare Billy Dib because he's a good guy? And maybe God answered that prayer and said, you know, I'm going to give him another go.
Absolutely, Billy. No, that's incredible to hear. And obviously, I imagine there'd be a lot of dark days, especially early on. I don't know if you have any quote-unquote good days throughout this process, but was there a moment where you just had more hope, or you got some good news and you thought, you know what, I might actually be all right here?
For sure. You know, obviously, when you first, you know, when I first went into hospital, it was like 6-7 weeks before I got to go home. And I was dying to go home because I wanted to spend some time with my son. I hadn't seen my son in a long time because the chemotherapy is no good, the radiation is no good for him. So, you know, when the doctor said to me, listen, you get through this chemotherapy, I'm going to let you go home for a few days, that was like a major victory, you know. And I had a lot of people supporting me, like my uncles and my loved ones, my mum, my brothers, my siblings, my wife. But Prince Naseem was somebody who I really leaned on, you know. And I remember being in the hospital for some time, and I got this like it's like a little mini statue of Prince Naseem, and I sort of kept it on the bedside, you know what I mean, as like an inspiration to get through it. And I remember when I was allowed to leave the hospital for a few days, I remember walking out and saying, like, you know, the hardest battles are won in the grimiest gyms, you know. And so, like, I just had come through this grind, through this grimy training regime against this thing that I couldn't see, and I'd finally been told that I could go home. So it was like a victory. That was like a major victory. And to go home, but then when they let you go home and then you got to come back, that's the hard part. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to let you out for a few days, but then you got to come back. That was really, really hard. So when you talk about the dark times were coming back to that after being out and spending time with your family, your friends. You're going for a walk with your uncle, you're doing a few things, and then you got to go back to this bed in this room, and you're confined into like a jail cell again.
Yeah. No, incredible. And I guess touch on that a little bit more, Billy, and maybe obviously not everyone's going to be able to relate to, you know, a battle as hard as that. But we often find in our community as well, people sometimes achieve a goal or do something really hard, and then they would relax a little bit, and then there's another opponent that comes up. I feel like in life, no matter what challenge you take on, there's always a bigger challenge that comes right behind it. How do you kind of stay, for lack of a better word, mentally motivated, or how do you kind of frame your mindset to be always open to taking new challenges and be grateful for challenges as opposed to have that victim mentality?
Well, for me now, you know, obviously after going through what I've gone through, both professionally and, you know, now personally, and, you know, obviously within myself, but for me, I just feel like I've got another chance at life. So I try to live my life every day now, spending time with people that I value, because I feel that when I was in hospital, I realized that time is the most valuable thing. And growing up as a kid, a lot of people told me, hey man, time is money. And I'm like, no, time is not money. I realized that time is not money, time is priceless, because you can't buy time. Because if you were gonna die and you said to the doctor, say, listen, I've got $50 million, can I just buy another 2 hours? He can't help you, because time is not promised. And so, you know, I've made a decision now to live my life spending time with people that I value and people that I care for, because I don't have time for the time wasters, because that's time wasted. I need to have time well spent. So I only spend my time with people that I value now. And so, you know, that's one of the major lessons that I learned from my journey. And that's how I live my life today. You know, and I know that, you know, all these amazing opportunities to do things, I weigh them up thinking that, is that more important than spending time with my son? And then I'll go from there.
Absolutely. Now that's fantastic, Billy. And I guess at the initial stages of your career, you wanted to inspire as many people as possible through boxing. Now in this next chapter of your life, what impact are you hoping to make?
Well, my goal, you know, I've always been a goal setter. It's like when I was a kid, when I was 12, I got footage of me telling the world when I was at 12, I'm like, I'm going to be champion of the world one day. I believed in myself. It didn't matter who believed in me, because I already believed in myself. I was like, yeah, you're going to be champion one day, kid. I was like, I already know, because I believed in me. And so for me now, like I set goals, my goal now is to become one of the best keynote speakers in the world, a keynote speaker / storyteller. I want to travel the world and tell my story and talk about my journey and how faith allowed me to overcome my adversities, you know. So faith has been a strong thing for me, a strong part of my life. And that's one of the things that's helped me through every adversity. And, you know, when you talk about adversities, you talk about losses in the ring. Because I was involved in fights where I was told, if you win this fight, your next fight, you're getting 750,000. You win this fight, you know, like, and I would just fall short of that most times. And that's kind of heartbreaking, you know. So like you go through your whole career. My goal was to become a world champion. God gave me that. But like them $1 million fights were just like, you know, arms reach, and I just fell short every time. And then obviously personal life, you get married and your wife passes away from cancer. And then a couple of years later, you get cancer yourself. Like it's just a battle. Life is just a battle. And for me, it's just about enjoying life as much as I can before anything else, another calamity hits. You never know, you know, that's just life.
Absolutely. And you've recently published your first book. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so just before, well, I actually started writing my book in 2015. After my wife passed away, I started writing my book because I felt like I needed something to waste a bit of time on. And the process was a long process, because I would write things and I'd put it away and then they'd come back and write. And it was very taxing, you know, to go back in time and to remember some of the not so pretty moments and to write about it, to relive them, is sometimes hurts. And so I'd put that away. And then eventually, you know, when the book was just about to release, I got diagnosed with cancer. And then the publisher, who was KMD Books, basically said to me, look, we've got to call the book back. And I was like, no, you can't. She's like, we have to call it back. And I was like, no, but what if I die? Like, I want this book to be released. And she said, she promised me, she said, listen, I promise you that if something happens to you, we'll release the book. Just take notes and somebody will complete it for you. So that's what I did. I just kept on taking notes. And then eventually, you know, just before I was deemed in remission, we had a book launch and we released the book. And it was important for me because I wanted this book to be out, because I was like, if I die, I want my son to know who I was. Because how's he going to remember who I was at the age of 2? Like, you know, he's nearly 3, but how's he going to remember that it's who his dad was? And that was so important to me. So I wanted to leave something behind for him. So obviously now the book's out and it's doing extremely well. I've sold over 3,000 copies, which is amazing. Like, schools are buying them in dozens, you know, because it's not a book about boxing, it's a book about life and a book about overcoming the adversities of life and the things that people go through, both personally, professionally, you know, in the dark. And it's a great book. And I've like now read it like 2 or 3 times. And it's just, as I said, it's not a book about boxing. Yes, it's got the boxing journey, but boxing set me up for who I am today. It's given me the platform to be who I am today. And I'm also now working on a kid's book, which is finished, and I've released it, and it's called Boys Do Cry. And it's about empowering young boys to cry, because, as you know, suicide's a really big thing in today's society. And I feel that men and boys are told not to cry because it's not the manly thing to do. And often you hear parents saying to their kids, or you hear somebody say to a young kid, stop crying like a little girl. Stop crying, you know, like you're a little man, stop it. But I think crying is such an important thing. It's, you know, it's an endorphin that you release, and it allows you to be able to, you know, feel something within yourself. And so I feel like crying saves you from the hurt of wanting to hurt yourself. And so I've written a book based on stories that happened to me when I was a kid. And one of them was when my grandmother, we were at an engagement party, and my grandmother basically collapsed and passed away, but they brought her back to life. But I remember when it happened, I was so distraught, and somebody said to me, "Stop crying like a girl. You're going to be champion of the world one day." And it was like, from that moment, they robbed me of the ability to cry. So for the next like 3-4 years, I never cried. And when my grandmother actually passed away, I was at the cemetery and everybody was crying. And here I am standing there like cold as ice. And then somebody said to me, "You okay?" And I was like, "I'm fine." And they're like, "You know, it's okay to cry." And as soon as he said that, it's like he triggered something and allowed me to cry, and basically gave me the right to cry back. And so that's what, you know, drove me to write this book, because I feel like it's a book that's going to help people, and that's what I want to do. I want to help people.
And for someone that's battling a tough time at the moment, Billy, regardless of what walk of life they come from, what advice would you give them?
The one advice that I have is that it'll pass. First and foremost, that it will pass. But the other thing that I would say is that, you know, some people do believe in God and some don't. But the thing is, you need to believe in something bigger than yourself. In order to come through something, you need to believe in something bigger than yourself. For me, that's God. For other people, that might be the ocean, the sun, whatever it may be. But just know that it will pass, and then find something bigger than yourself to believe in. And know that nothing in your life is happening by accident. This is all a part of God's plan for you. Everyone's got a plan that's designed for them, and this is the plan that God has designed for you. So just be accepting of it and roll with the punches.
Fantastic. Billy, thank you so much, my friend. Absolute legend. All right, Billy, we are now on to our rapid fire questions, my friend. Now, you don't have to go too fast. You think about it if you want to.
Let's get it.
All right, so first question. What's your favorite punch?
The jab.
The jab. Okay. What's your favorite combination?
I would say the 1-2 left hook.
Beautiful, nice and textbook. If you could have fought anyone in your career, who would it have been?
Marco Antonio Barrera.
That would have been a fantastic fight. And last questions I have is, if you could pick any two fighters from any era for a fantasy matchup, who would it be and why?
I would definitely pick, I would say Muhammad Ali versus Mike Tyson. Because, I mean, everyone talks about it. It would be such an intriguing fight. But I definitely feel that Muhammad Ali would have schooled Mike Tyson. I just feel like Mike would have been tailor-made. Muhammad Ali would have just picked him off. It would have been like a George Foreman versus Muhammad Ali scenario. That's just my opinion.
Fantastic.